really kind of talk just for a second about the theme of the forum, which is metaphysics and all its permutations. And Kathleen is addressing the idea that the foundation of philosophy, Sophia, who is the goddess of wisdom, Sophia, the name Sophia. And it's still a mystery that I think Kathleen is going to talk about, where that name originally came from. Everybody thinks it came from Greece. No, it really came from the Near East, and some we'll talk about. But there are many categories in metaphysics, and many different things, existential, experiential. Many things come into that category, including the idea of categorization, for instance. Being comes from the Greek philosophers. These were issues that were really addressed over a whole dialectical centuries of conversation among the philosophers. So Kathleen, I met in 1996 at a Sophia convention here in Connecticut. She's from Ithaca. She asked some very pointed questions of the theosophists there, which prompted me to ask her about herself, and so we got to be friends. And she's talked at the forums that I've been giving since 2001, starting up in North.
Yeah, we caused a lot of trouble with those.
And we had some
conventional
Sophia disagreements with the people there. With very productive things in terms of what is the evolution of philosophy as a living being. Sophia, the goddess, is alive, and it's something we really need to address in terms of wisdom and how to behave in the world before we blow ourselves up. We're still in danger. So, Kathleen, thank you very much for coming. You've been a great supporter of all the forums I've done, so my heart goes out to you.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing us together, because it's such a friendly, atmosphere, and I learned so much yesterday. I filled up a whole thing, a whole tab of. Sorry for all the material. I just had to tell you this, that I called Jonas, I think it was 3 days ago, and I said, I'm so sorry I can't come, because I had just driven my car from California, from Mendocino to where I've been living for several years, back to Virginia Beach to spend a year for various reasons. And so I said, there's no way I can come, because my car went fell down in a gully and hurt the frame. And I said, I just can't make it. And so he told me who was going to be here, and several of my friends here and that I met in Sicily, and I found a train and came up. So there's no PowerPoint presentation. I do have handouts. So anything, I can't go into detail. The volume of material on Sophia is so extensive. If you have any questions, what I prefer, because Jonas told me that we were going to limit the time, is that if you do have any questions, any question that you have about what I'm going to summarize at the beginning is found in detail on my website, Sophia and the Dragon. And there's
www.
Why don't you just pick it up? Yeah, it's SOPHIAAND, the Dragon. So it's right on here. Pick it up, and my cell phone is there. So there's another issue. There's just one small issue. I'm not saying this as an excuse, but while Scott was giving his talk on the cuts, I had an essay published. I got to put in a plug for the writers of the Mendocino Coast. I won a contest 2 years in a row. Anyway, it's I'll have to put in a plug for them. So my last two published essays are in the Writers of the Mendocino Coast. I don't have any copies because I never got one back from the printer, from the editor. So this one came out. This was just published last month. It's called Genesis First Degree, and I'll read just a little paragraph from that. And I was there listening to Scott, and I said, I wrote something about cuts. It was last year, and so I had the essay I had published in this same book last year. An hour went past, and I couldn't remember the name. It's called Queen of Cuts. So that's also available, and it's about weaving. A lot of the themes we did yesterday were about weaving, but I'm saying that because my memory for lots of things isn't. I've been on chemo, and I had severe. Severe pneumonia and lung surgery, so my brain isn't quite there for dates and things like that. So I'll read a little bit now. This is Genesis, first degree. 1 degree Aries, a story of origins in the first degree.
Who had the falafel?
What's that?
Who had the falafel?
Yeah.
Who had the falafel? Okay.
The first mystery.
I'll take it all. Bring it up. We'll take care of it. Okay. 1 degree Aries, a story of origins in the first degree of the first sign of the zodiac. Quote, a woman has risen from the water. A seal has emerged also and is embracing her. Unquote. Now, this is the first of 360 Sabian symbols of the zodiac from Mark Edmund Jones, etc., in the Sabian symbol astrology. Prologue. Beneath the ocean of no surface. What is the name of the ocean of no surface? Abzu. What is Abzu and who lives there? I will read you the story that survives the collapse of the worlds. Quote, a well-established tradition of Semitic mythology insisted that wisdom, Sophia, was inherent in that primordial substance. In Mesopotamia, the word Abzu, which denotes that ocean, was popularly interpreted as Ab-Zu, the abode of wisdom, and regarded as the seat of Ea, E-A, god of arts and crafts and of intellectual creativity. It was indeed largely by virtue of the wisdom latent in that ocean that magicians were able to operate, and it was from that ocean that the 7 primeval masters of arts and sciences were believed to have sprung. So this is from Buttrick and Buck, editors of the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible. Okay, continuing on, just a few more lines.
Buck, B-U-C-K-E?
Let me finish. But who can recognize an ocean of missing horizons? No one, that is, unless the surface is broken. Why must the surface break? Unless the surface breaks, the elements cannot separate to create a habitat for life on Earth. Who breaks the surface? The woman. What is her name? Aphrodite Athena. She is called by many names around the world. One is Lakshmi, goddess of beauty and good fortune. Shiva worshipped her, praising her thus, quote, I bow to the lotus feet of the daughter of Vidya, whose youthfulness and grace attract the minds of the yogis. She destroys the 3 kinds of pain, spiritual, mental, and physical. The sages, the swans of knowledge, ever wait upon her. She is the store of pollen from which the bee of intellect drinks. That's from the Agastya Samhita. So, is she alone? No one is alone. What rises with her from the surface? Forgotten stories. And you'll have to read the rest. Put in the plug for Writers of the Mendocino Coast. So, okay, so what I decided to do to try to make this to speed it up a little bit is I'm going to just basically tell you the questions that I'm addressing here and give you a summary of what's on my website in much more detail and just give you a summary to bring those people who may not know where Sophia, where the name arose, what its relationship is to philosophy. Particularly my interest is, why did she disappear from the three major religions? So these are the questions. Who is Sophia? And what is wisdom? Why did Sophia disappear along with the wisdom traditions, except as we know as the undercurrent in the mystical traditions? And from where does philosophy's angel come? Because that's the title of my talk. So what I'd like to do is, when I give this summary, if you could just hold your questions, because all the details, again, go to my website or ask me later, because I want to get through this for the sake of time. But what I'd like to spend time with at the end, maybe at least 20 minutes, what I was hoping for was a discussion of something that remains a mystery. Because in wisdom, if you can say anything about wisdom, it is a mystery. The goal and the source is a mystery. And as soon as you think you have the answer, you're not in philosophy anymore. You're on perhaps a scaffolding. And what makes philosophy so energizing and so thrilling, better than any drug, is when you have a scaffolding of belief, which I did when I discovered Sophia, and I said, I'm going to bring her to the world, and now, and I'll be the one to do it, and she's the divine face of God, and blah, blah, blah. And when you have that scaffolding, generally in the path that I have followed, a sage comes along, someone who's very wise, and they look at you and they'll ask you a question. And with that, the scaffolding unravels and dissolves, and you are in free fall, intellectually and spiritually and psychologically. And when you are in free fall, it's the greatest high that I have ever experienced. Because there is no belief system to contain you. And when you are in free fall, that's when magic occurs. And that's when that literal time can come to an end, and you can experience the two aspects of our experience, which is not just literal, chronological, and linear, but the symbolic. So, I will read something now. There's a few of these left, if you want to pick one up at the end. So, Sophia's soul of the world, the anima mundi. But where shall understanding be found? This is the name, by the way, of my master's thesis. I move with roaring, howling, and radiant might. I move with the infinite and nature's powers. I hold the love of the Lord of Lords. I hold the fire of the soul. I hold life and healing. Now this is Vak speaking of herself in the Rig Veda, thousands of years before the Old Testament wisdom literature was put together. So who is this fierce immensity that is female, cosmic, who holds life, love, and healing? She speaks of herself through ancient poets and visionaries as perfect nature, as the soul of the world, as the ancient goddesses of justice and natural law, and as Sophia, guardian angel of philosophy and teacher of men in the wisdom literature of the Bible. The word philosophy was coined by Pythagoras and comes from the Greek word philene, I think. Forgive my pronunciations also. Philene is not eros, it's brotherly love. So the word philene was joined with Sophia, wisdom. So Pythagoras was the first person to call himself a philosopher, presumably, which he defined as, quote, one who is attempting to find out. Before Pythagoras, in the 6th century before the Common Era, wise men called themselves sages, meaning those who know. Philosophers, poets, and visionaries personified wisdom as a powerful female who nourished their spiritual imagination and philosophical insight. The heavenly Sophia is the philosopher's angel, quote, his initiator and tutor, the object and secret of all philosophy, the dominant figure in the sage's personal religion. She is the form of light, conjoined with his star, which rules him and opens the doors of wisdom for him, teaches him what is difficult, reveals to him what is right, in sleeping as in waking. Socrates declared perfect nature to be the son of the philosopher, S-U-N. The, quote, original root of his being, and at the same time, the branch springing from him. This is a quote from Majridi, Goal of the Sage, quoted in Henry Corbin, The Man of Light in Iranian Sufism. Again, all of this is taken directly from my website. So Sophia personifies wisdom, the subject of ancient traditions concerned with integrity in the marketplace. This is from within now the religious framework. There are several frameworks, which after I finish reading this, I'm going to give you all the different frameworks. So this is the most extensive research on Sophia comes from within the Old Testament text. So the subject of ancient traditions were concerned with integrity in the marketplace. Sophia, her speeches, the text attributed to Sophia, put her at the marketplace and in politics, at the city gate and the royal court. In the biblical wisdom literature, she teaches men that clear perception and discernment are more important than gold. Because the teachings were rooted in life, L-I-F-E, life, instead of doctrine, and because spoken by a divine female figure, Sophia became problematical and was systematically, purposely, or for reasons that I'll go into that are all here. Sophia became problematical and excluded from the religious formulations of monotheism. Sophia's exile from mainstream religion mirrors the alienation suffered by modern individuals who experience anything from going to war, betrayal, or those people who find themselves unable to adopt the religion of their origins and then are accused of being an atheist or agnostic or whatever. So this is a path that is a path of philosophical inquiry, the path of wisdom that takes you through those dichotomies that were forced on us by religion, fundamentalist religion, Catholicism, etc. Excuse my shadow. Sophia, the person in the word philosophy, was named Sophia after the Greek word for wisdom. She was described in the 5 biblical books classified as wisdom literature, written in the post-exilic period, from 500 years before the Common Era onward. Sophia is not only a teacher of men in these texts, but also co-creator of the world in Proverbs. How many of you have heard of a co-creator with God? Did you ever hear of it beside when you were young? No, from your priests or from? I sure didn't.
Kathleen,
Yeah.
when Jesus said, "I am the greatest creator of the universe," the voice from above him said, "Shut up, you."
That was the Aldebaoth. That was the Aldebaoth. Yeah, the false Hebrew god. Yeah. We have I have a lot of material on that. Yeah. So Sophia speaks about her identity, power, and function, and her mysterious presence with quote-unquote God at creation in passages reminiscent of earlier speeches of wisdom goddesses found in sacred texts in India, Egypt, and Sumeria. Sophia eventually disappeared from the development of mainstream theological tradition in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam because she was problematical. Being a she did not fit in to the increasingly male-dominated religions that excluded the feminine in favor of an all-male God that creates everything. Such a concept would be ludicrous for the earlier matrifocal societies who were well aware that the source, bearer, and protector of newborn life is the woman, not the man. For centuries, the frequent presence of Sophia in the wisdom tradition literature was a difficult issue for biblical scholars attempting to account for her apparent divinity and role in creation. Number one, her divine status, evident from her speeches, does not easily fit into monotheism, where there's only one God. And he's male. Her teachings are rooted in life, not in obedience to rules, gods, or priests. There was a very active priesthood, you know, that's the intermediary between the individual and the presumed God. Okay, the wisdom teachings that Sophia personifies demand individual integrity and justice in the marketplace and the royal court, and are achieved through clear perception and devotion to her wisdom, and by abandoning marketplace consciousness, my term, giving up the quest for gold and possessions. She is associated with the natural order and the meaning of creation rather than the revelation and salvation of monotheistic religions. Sophia had many of the characteristics of earlier wisdom goddesses who carry the banner of the supremacy, primacy, and justice of the natural order of the cosmos, rather than the capricious, brutal rule of man whose focus is on profit and domination. Not individual men, but you know, the guys in rulership at the time. Her gender is unacceptable in religions that deify only the male. The strenuous effort of Hebrew prophets to turn their people away from the worship of popular local deities to an ever stricter monotheism admitted no divine reality save one demanding, wifeless male god, which I'll get into later, and the impact of that on our collective psyche today. So Sophia was so problematical for the translators and the interpreters of the text composing the New Testament that her development as a divine figure gradually disappeared from the main stage of Christianity, except in Russia. Russia's Sophiology and Orthodox. And I have a picture here in parabola. You might want to pick it up. The theme happens to be wisdom. And there's a beautiful, on the very last page, Saint Sophia, the Wisdom of God, in which wisdom is Jesus. St. Paul said that Jesus is the Sophia prophesied in the Old Testament, and of course that's what the Gnostics believe. And for those of you who are ardent Jesus fans, I would just suggest this, that you consider the Christ consciousness and Jesus as perhaps being a multiple and not a singularity. And so anyway, if you want to look at this picture at the end. So very briefly, here's a selection of titles and interpretations of Sophia. The Philosopher's Angel, as we said, the object and secret of all philosophy, especially in Iranian Sufism. The wisdom principle in the human being, the intellectual aspect of the soul which redeems itself by renouncing error, which is philosophy. The world's soul, anima mundi. She's frequently referred to in the last 30 years as the divine feminine, the divine face of God. She's referred to as the Holy Ghost, the Virgin Mary, equated with Jesus, as I mentioned, by St. Paul. She is perfect nature, the visionary organ of the soul in Iranian Sufism. And